See, many people feel as though I disliked Mac Miller, but I didn't. I want to wish him happy 30th birthday today. See, I respected Mac Miller. Why? Because he was not afraid to be true to himself. And I also respect the fact that he means so much to a whole lot of individuals that's out there. You dig? For whatever reasons, it is what it is, but it takes a certain caliber of an individual to strike that kind of chord within others. Like, this is why his name is still going viral right now. Well after his death, people are reminiscing right now that he was going to be 30 years old, which is really tragic when you realize how young he was. Like, this is it's been 2 years since he's passed? Like, it's crazy when you put it all together, man. To be real with you, for those of you who watch the TV show Euphoria, he reminds me of somebody on Euphoria a lot. If you watch it, you know exactly who I'm talking about. But it does sadden me. But again, people think that I disliked him. No. You know who I dislike? I would say I dislike Lil Baby for what he does, for what he represents, and the music that he kicks out. He's pretty terrible across the board. Who else do I dislike? I dislike a lot of you Mac Miller fans and the record label because you guys enabled him to have this tragic death. Now, am I putting all the blame on your shoulders, on your feet, that this is without you, he wouldn't be here? No, I'm not going to do that. Every man walks his own path. Every man makes his own decisions. But many of the things that y'all was letting slide, a lot of things that y'all was seeing that you didn't want to call out, that helped. Like, do you remember the interviews like on The Breakfast Club where he was talking about his struggles of drug abuse, but then he proceeds to go ahead and sign a massive deal with Warner Brothers directly after, instead of actually addressing the fact that he was having these issues? How's about when he totaled his car and ran from the scene and people just brushed that underneath the carpet? Everybody want to act like that didn't even happen. You feel me? Like, many of the things that he was doing and rapping about, he was giving you warning signs that he was troubled. But instead of people like, yo, maybe he should go ahead and seek help. Maybe he should just chill out and be cool. But no, as fans, you demand more and more and more. And that's just the game, though. That's something that people don't quite understand. Like, when it comes to artistry, the fans are supposed to demand more and more from you. That's how you actually can provide for your family. That's how you get money. That's how everything goes well. Like, the fans will never understand the difficulty of what an individual is going through because you always want to see him doing well. You always want to tie him to the fondness memories that his music brings you. You want to go to see his shows and have fun and feel as though you know him. But by doing this, you've all made excuses for him when he was clearly having a lot of issues. But the main thing, the main reason why I'm one of the most hated out here, man, is because I tell you the facts. He wasn't very good at music. And he wasn't. I'm never going to back down from that. See, you can have your own attachment to his music, but his music simply didn't compete with the best of his time period. Let me give you an example. Sam Darnold, for the football fans that are in attendance, we're in the NFL playoffs. I think a lot of you have been watching football. Sam Darnold, even Sam Darnold, started for the Jets and the Panthers after being drafted number 2 overall. Is he as good as Josh Allen? right now who's in the playoffs, who actually got a chance of making it to the Super Bowl? They were drafted in the same year. Is he as good as Lamar Jackson, who was drafted in the same year, but well after, like Lamar Jackson was drafted 30th, Sam Darnold was drafted number 2. We are clearly seeing Sam Darnold is not a good quarterback, while all these other quarterbacks are. See, Mac Miller, musically, was overhyped in comparison to the standard of his competition. Who would be his competition? We can look at it in terms of, say, the XXL freshman class. Even though I'm not a fan of this individual article and all of this stuff no more, because the guideline of who they throw into the class, it fluctuates and it's become more and more terrible as time has gone on. But who was Mac Miller in the class with? I wouldn't say he was as good as Kendrick Lamar. Would you? The guy who many people deem as the best in the game right now, even though he hasn't shown up to do anything for a very long time, where I feel as though he gets disqualified for it. But Mac Miller is not as good as Kendrick ever was. Damn sure not as good as Yellow Wolf, even though his hype and standing in the music industry ain't where it is. Skill-wise, flow-wise, just in general, Yellow Wolf runs circle not just around Mac Miller, but around the vast majority of the music industry. He's nowhere near as lyrical as Fred the Godson was. May he rest in peace too. Sad that his name don't get brought up like this consistently. Man who was really lyrical, a man who really didn't get the props that he deserved for his just ability to make rhymes. Something that Mac Miller could never make punchlines anywhere close to what he did. And regardless how you feel about Big Crit was the superior musician. He was the superior act. And he still is to this day. I would personally say Mac Miller was more equal to a Meek Mill, to a YG in terms of artistry. But in terms of skill, closer to Lil B. But he's better than Lil B, but closer to Lil B than what many would want him to be. But let's go outside of the XXL freshman list. Let's look at like his homie who was coming up with him at about the same time. Anderson .Paak, who's been making a bunch of songs reminiscing about his friend Mac Miller, who is currently to the forefront of R&B music. This is who he was with at the time. There's nothing that Mac Miller has done that's equal to the last 3 projects that Anderson .Paak released. Take it with a grain of salt. It is what it is. See, even the Browns, the Cleveland Browns, who have emotional attachment to Baker Mayfield, he's in all of the commercials. Everybody in Cleveland, they love them some Baker Mayfield, but he came out at about the same time as Sam Darnold. Even the Browns are coming to the harsh realities that Baker isn't what Joe Burrow is to Cincinnati in just 2 seasons. See, there are levels to quality musicianship. And what annoys me is when people overhype an individual because he died tragically. Like you want him to be much more than what he actually was. And there's nothing wrong with saying, yo, Mac Miller, he defined my youth, man. He was an artist that I looked up to and I respected. He was great in his own way. I will attempt to try to carry on his legacy by supporting his music and his messages that he presented to us. But when you begin to cross that line, where you begin to say like, oh, he's one of the greatest to do it, need to put him in the top 5 categories of all time. Like, do you have any idea how much work it takes for someone to get mentioned in those areas? the day in and out practice to master one's style, master one's delivery, to perfect the performances, to actually become a amazing artist. Like the work it takes to just be able to make one good song, let alone consecutive bodies of music that are perceived as classical. How much are you disrespecting others' work ethics by including someone who clearly showed through the way that he lived and died that music wasn't the only thing going on with him? Honestly, he had a lot of other issues in a bunch of other different areas. Someone so troubled that I can't say that I was all that surprised when I heard of his ending. Sad to say it, but I wasn't. See, there are people who are being disciplined right now as young children on how to create music. And then you have your artists like Mac Miller who strikes an emotional attachment within people. There's two different levels to this, and these levels should not be crossed. There's nothing wrong with being the artist that strikes emotional attachment to people. You're loved forever, in life and in death, as we see. But you can't really hold a torch to the people that have been putting in the work year after year after year, becoming great musicians, and then finally getting the chance. But with all that said, happy birthday, Mac Miller. This game is not the same without you. When he was on his A game, you could sense his honesty and his raw enjoyment that he's having in life, even though we come to realize at this point he was putting a smile on depression. He was putting a smile on the fact that he was really hurting on the inside, which is why he took these things that he took. He had a super bright future, even though he was in the game for a very long period of time. He still had higher heights that he could reach to. He signed such a massive record deal, and he was able to fulfill a lot of it. He was going to be able to hit the market again and continue to grow as an individual. You feel me? Now, I didn't have the same attachment to Mac Miller as a lot of you fans do. I had more attachment to Nipsey Hussle. May he rest in peace. And I love Nipsey Hussle. Am I ever going to say that he's top 5 rapper? No. He's my greatest. I respect him for who he was, what he represented, the things that he said, how he teach people the game, how raw and how real he was at all times. He never bowed down to nobody, especially not no record labels. He was amazing from beginning to end, and it seems as though the best of us die too soon. But I also recognize, hey man, there's a lot of great musicians out here that putting in way more work. While Nip was in them streets, that was where his focus was for the most part. It is what it is. If I can recognize that with my favorite rapper of an entire generation to a degree, just based off of who he was, if I can recognize that, you can recognize this about Mac Miller. You can love him for who he is, who he was, what he represented. You can enjoy the music that he put out there, but do not put extras on it, because there's great artists out there that you're not giving a chance to because you're stuck with an emotional attachment when you need to realize, music is a difficult craft. It's a difficult craft to master. It's a difficult thing to do. It's a super difficult thing to work with. Those who master it, you should respect them too. But that's all I had to say today, man. Might be another show later on tonight if something else come out that I want to talk about. But I just wanted to say this for Mac Miller and his fans, I guess. Happy birthday to that man. Rest in peace.